Hi, I'm Holly, your host of the Crush the Rush podcast. I work full-time and run a full-time coaching business. I started my first coaching business when my twins were 18 months old, and I was excited to start something I was passionate about, but overwhelmed with how to make progress in such small pockets of time. The methods of working 3 to 4 hours a day in blocks of time didn't work, quite frankly, because I didn't have it. So my mission is to share how you can put together your own side hustle strategy and plan that works for you without giving up your goals and still focusing on your priorities. I can't wait to help you grow your business and, more importantly, enjoy that well-deserved time off. Let's get to the show. You are listening to episode 105 of the Crush the Rush podcast. In today's episode, we are sitting down with a sales expert, Annie Ruggles, who was chatting with us of how to ditch the sleaziness of selling. And I love this so much because I feel like when you start a business, you don't think about, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to actually ask somebody for money. And instead you focus in, and what you should focus in on is all the amazing things that you're going to put together and how you're going to help people and sort of all of that. But when it comes to actually asking for money, you start to panic and then you get into this like, oh my gosh, I can't do sales mode. So this episode is for you if you want to get out of the mindset of I can't sell and how to really just remove the sleaze from selling. So for almost a decade, Annie Ruggles has harnessed her hawk-like hard sales tactics, self-promotion, and overly competitive sleazeballs in selling as inspiration to help people find better ways to grow their small business. She's the founder of the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy, and she's guided hundreds of people toward making deeper connections, lasting impressions, and friendlier, more lucrative transactions and conversations. She also has a podcast, which I have been on as well, called Too Legitimate to Quit, and serves up instant, actionable small business advice. You guys are going to love this so much, and you're going to want to make sure that you listen at the end because she actually gives us homework to do to really come up with our non-sleazy sales method. So grab a pen and paper and let's get to the show. Hi, Annie. Welcome to the Crush the Rush podcast today. How are you?
I am delighted to be here, Holly. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So we were just chatting before this that we have not really had a sales expert or selling expert on the podcast yet. And so I am just thrilled to have you here, especially because I think your method is just so relatable and you just make talking about it like very easy and fun. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you do and your background, and then we'll dig in.
Absolutely. So I am the founder of the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy, calling out to coaches, healers, and other bleeding hearts who really went into business or are trying to go into business in order to help others using what they perceive as natural gifts or talents or their acquired skills. But what happens in those situations when what we're doing is so incredibly meaningful to us, it tends to bring in a lot of resistance when it comes to asking for money, raising your prices, or any of the other activities that compromise integrity and comprise selling. There we go. That's where I was going. But yeah, so that's me in a little tiny nutshell. I've been a small business strategist in one form or another for about a decade now. And what I realized in my own business is that all the marketing in the world will not make you money if you don't turn around and ask. And so now I specialize in helping people get there faster and in a way that is in keeping with who they truly are.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think, when you start a business, you forget that you actually at some point have to ask for a sale.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, it would just come to you naturally. And some do. I call those unicorns, but they don't happen all the time. Right. And so I think it's awesome that you have a method sort of to walk us through how to do this and how to just not feel sleazy anytime you're talking about selling. So I would love to just jump right in. So I think the most important thing that we've talked about is just sort of reframing your selling mindset. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So what I see over and over and over, especially in side hustlers, and especially in people that have come out of an environment that is not entrepreneurial,
Right.
this thing that I call selling baggage or sales baggage. And what sales baggage really is all of the things that have really eroded or corroded your relationship with the idea of selling. And what that looks like is how every single time you've been sold too badly, your brain remembers that. Your brain remembers that and puts a check in the column of heck no, I will never be that person. No way, no how, But it just starts over time to replace the idea that selling in and of itself is just asking for an exchange of value. I'm giving you this and you're giving me money. If you needed a goat, they could give you a goat, but most of us can't pay our rent with a goat. So money it is, right? And so that's one of the areas where our relationship with selling really takes a lot of damage. Another one though, especially for your people who are working this double life of building something during the day and building something else nights and weekends or whatever their schedule may be, is how you're taught to sell in corporate environments. How you're taught to sell in corporate environments has absolutely nothing to do with what you yourself deliver, right? You hand it off to a delivery team, a customer care team. It gets, drop shipped out to them and you move on to the next sale. When you are selling something that is of you, you are every department. Even when you hire out those departments, you are marketing and sales and customer service. And as such, you have complete control to make that non-sleazy and to make sure that you're delivering what you're promising. Whereas in corporate, if I tell you that I'm selling you the very best software, and it turns out that the software is a piece of what,
right.
I just sold you a bill of goods because my boss told me to. And now I feel like a jerk. The boss doesn't care. They're on to the next thing. Selling your own stuff is entirely different. And the last form of sales baggage that I think might come into play here is just a general lack of skill or knowledge. And what happens in that, like what you said, is, I guess I have to sell. I started this business. It didn't really occur to me that I would have to sell because I was wrapped up in the enthusiasm of providing, right? But then when you actually go to sell and you get into a selling situation, you realize on the fly, and this is what happened to me, that I had absolutely no clue what I was doing.
Right.
And I was improvising and I was making it up and I was basing it on marketing, which I love. I'm not anti-marketing. I'm anti-over-marketing, right? But all of these things, how we've been taught to sell other people's stuff, the things we haven't been taught about selling, and how we've been sold to terribly, that all combines into the idea that selling is a manipulative act based on the desires and whims of the seller. Why would anyone want to do that? Why? Why would anyone want that? That is why sales resistance is completely understandable. But on the flip side, if you can look at those things and go, selling is not how I've been sold to. Selling is not me having to sell wrapping paper when I was in grade school door to door.
I so did that.
Right? We all did. And then we were like, oh God, this is brutal. I hated this. I'm never doing this. Oh my God, no. Selling is not cold calling. It's not.
I did that too. I've totally done that too.
Right? And so that is all of these experiences come together, which is why if you ask most heart-centered, highly empathic people to define selling, they'll be like, selling is this manipulative, gross nastiness that you have to strong arm somebody into this or that. You get them talking and you're like, well, where did you learn that? And they're like, well, and then they'll bring up one of these forms of sales baggage.
Yeah, I think it's really important. So you mentioned to just not do what people have done to you. I think that's a really great point. So if we were going to sort of flip gears and say, okay, we're going to sell the right way because we do need to sell something in our business to be profitable. Like, let's face it, we do want to make money and help people at the same time.
What?
I know.
What are you talking about, Holly? That's too wild.
It is wild. What can we do to get started and not feel sleazy?
Remember, at every single inch of this map, that you are speaking with and dealing with a human being on the other side of the transaction. When you're in a sales pit, making call after call after call, your manager is looking at your close rate and the number of calls you made, right? Your manager is going, that's a call, check, that's a call, check. Not that's a person. That's a cell on a spreadsheet, on to the next, right? That's a metric. That's a statistic. Drop that mindset. Your metrics and numbers are important. Sure, of course, we want these businesses to be profitable. But if you treat the person that you're selling to like a person, just that small shift will already eradicate about 80% of what makes you uncomfortable about selling. Right? The lying, the arm twisting, the overselling, the breakdown tactics, the arguing objections, all of those things happen because that person is being treated like a statistic. Stop, respond with empathy, compassion, and passion, and you will not be able to commit to that kind of selling. You simply won't. And the next thing is make yourself the promise that you will never, ever, ever, ever sell anybody anything that they do not want or need. The majority of times when you have been sold too badly, it is because you have been convinced that you want or need something that you do not want or need. So instead, I want you to reframe selling as problem solving for money.
I love that.
Find out what their problem is. If you can solve it, amazing. Tell them you can solve it. Tell them how much it's going to cost to solve it. The problem could be, I really want a cupcake today. It doesn't have to move mountains, right? If you're a baker, maybe you're going to have to pull off a last minute birthday cake to save the day, but most of the time it's going to be, I have a craving that needs fulfillment, right? If you're selling life coaching, you're selling fulfillment. Okay, what kind of fulfillment? What does that look like? You can't promise someone they're going to meet the love of their life in 5 days, but you can promise them that their confidence is going to change a whole lot. Is confidence really the problem that they need solved? That's it. If you focus on the problems you can solve and only the problems you can solve, not only will you treat people like people and not transactions, you will never be accused of any of the junk that you so desperately run away from because you're just problem solving for money.
I love that. I think problem solving for money is going to be my new phrase going into any conversation. Can you give us, so let's say we're into a conversation and we're trying to problem solve for money. Like, what are there like specific questions? Because everyone's like, what do you say? How do you say it? Like, are there specific questions that you typically would use to like draw out somebody's problems, or something that you might say in like a DM or a message? Because I mean, let's face it, a lot of this happens through social media. Like, what does that look like?
You know, it's all permission based because a lot of selling is based on things that we're not necessarily happy to disclose, right? Let's go back to my stupid cupcake example. Maybe I want a cupcake because I want a cupcake. Maybe I want a cupcake because my boss just screamed at me and I'm having a really bad day and I need to go downstairs to the lobby to cry in the bathroom and then, damn it, I'm going to get myself a cupcake. Who knows, right? So what I'm not going to do as cupcake baker, unless I dearly know the person, and if I do, that's a different story. But if you came in off the street and you look pretty upset, I, as cupcake baker, am not going to be like, wow, person I don't know, you look like you're having a horrible day. Would you like some sugar and fat to help you emotionally eat now? No, you would never do that. That's too intimate, right? Yeah. But if you came up to the counter and I could tell that you're visibly upset, I could say, hey, you look, you could use a cupcake today. They're right here. How can I help you? And then I can let you talk. If you want to word vomit on me about what a horrible day you've had, at that point, that's your prerogative, right? But what I see is, number one, people will flat out avoid talking about pain entirely. The cupcake example is not super great for that, but, we buy solutions to problems. Again, we're problem solving for money. If we don't talk about the problem, then what are we actually buying? Try to sell Tylenol without talking about headaches.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah.
Come take this pill full of chemicals, 2 of them with a big glass of water. Why? I don't know. Just take it. What? Instead, if we talk very openly about the kind of value we provide and the kind of problems that we solve, then we can use empathy and compassion to say, when people come to me, a lot of them are experiencing this, and this. And I know in my own experience, I felt this way, and really wanted this solution, and this answer. Can you relate to that, or is it different for you?
Yeah, I have what you just said. I have wrote down as feel, felt, found, which I've seen in different things that I've done. But I think there are 2 things that stood out. One is the how can I help you? Like a lot of times that's just the most basic question to ask if you're going back and forth. Is like, how can I help you? Or this might help you. But I think asking them how they feel and then going back and reframing it, like I have found this is really, really helpful.
Yep. But it also, keeps you from being accidentally too intimate or from coming off as aloof. Because that's the other thing that happens when you ignore the pain point entirely.
Right.
Is you're like, wow, look at this Pollyanna who wants to literally sell me the moon and doesn't understand that down here on planet Earth, stuff is pretty awful.
Yeah, that's really important too, I think. And especially with everything going on now, like you just never know what's going on in somebody's life and what they're going through. And so I always try, and I think you said this too, was to let them talk more.
The great irony of my life, Holly, if I had to distill it down, it is that someone as loud as me teaches other people to shut up for a living.
Yeah.
The number one mistake that I myself made on sales calls and in selling situations is the word babble that I refer to as sales vomit, right? It's not even word vomit. It's sales vomit. And what would happen is, because of the gaps in my own knowledge and my own discomfort, when I get anxious, I talk. My ears shut down entirely. My brain shuts down entirely. My mouth is the Energizer Bunny. Here we go. So if I was, for example, uncomfortable about my price point, then what I would do is I would say the price, and instead of just waiting and listening for the response or allowing the customer to tell me how that works for them or doesn't work for them, I would assume it wouldn't work for them. I would try to avoid the rejection. And the way that I would avoid the rejection was by running my dang mouth. So I'd be like, and the price for that is $448. But Holly, you seem like a really lovely person. And like you were on my podcast and I'm on your podcast and we're friends and we were talking about cake and like we have inside jokes and stuff like that. So like, Holly, like it's totally okay. Your method was really good and helpful to me. So like, and it's introductory. I've had fewer than 100 people in this thing. So like, you know what, Holly, how about $50?
Yeah. And then you just downsold yourself.
And meanwhile, they could be sitting there going, more expensive than I thought, but she's made a really good case. Or they could be sitting there going, whoa, that's dramatically less than I thought she was going to say. Or they could say, hey, yeah, that sounds like it's about comparative and competitive to the other stuff that I've been seeing. But we assume, especially when it comes to price, that they're going to have the same reaction that we might have on our worst day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think keeping it simple is really, really good advice, and not to word vomit, because I definitely do that as well. And I feel like some of those mistakes I've made is I go into the features like, oh, well, you're going to get like 800 different things because I love lists and I love all the, things. And That's really, I mean, they care about those and I care about those, but what they care about more is the solution. And that I think that goes back to what you're saying about empathy and solving their problem.
Well, there are emotional buyers and there are fact-based buyers. And there are people that live in the extreme of those, but most of us are on a spectrum. In order to buy, we need a little razzle dazzle and a little ROI fact-based, right? Like, how am I going to get my money back on this thing? How am I going to quantify that this was worth it? But we also need the storytelling and the motivation and the emotion to show differentiation, if nothing else, right?
Yeah.
But when I see a sales page or a sales call that is just not hitting the mark, normally that's the very first thing that I look at. It's a volume button. And on one end, or a hot water, cold water tap. On one end, we have detail. And on the other end, we have emotion. And we got to look at first, where are we on the dial and what direction do we need to go? Because some people are going to go, and it depends also what you're selling, right? If you're selling a program that has 8,000 components and you know that most of your competitors' programs are garbage because they don't actually say anything, then yes, you probably do want to talk about the fact that you have the most comprehensive, robust program of its kind because it's a competitive advantage, right? But if I'm selling that cupcake again, I don't need to tell you every single ingredient. I could put that on a label.
Right.
On the flip side, if I'm selling you something that's going to make you money and I tell you how good it's going to feel to make money the entire sales page, you're going to get bored of that and be like, yes, I know. Thank you. But I'm buying a sales program from you. I need to know that you're going to teach me how to close and handle objections. If you just tell me I'm going to feel better, that's not going to do it either. So my advice to you, to me, to everybody is imagine where you are on that dial. And when you start having these conversations, whether they're networking conversations, sales conversations, exploratory discovery calls, whatever it is, you will be able to tell in practice whether you need to ratchet up the detail or ratchet up the emotion.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Hi there. So many of you have reached out to me asking for various options for how we can work together one-on-one this year. And maybe if you have been listening and following along, you might have looked at my courses and you might have looked at the mastermind, but there's just something stopping you. And it has nothing to do with the program. It has everything to do with how you feel about it working for you. So you might be asking, what if it doesn't work? What if it's too hard? What if it's just another tool that I leave on the shelf? I totally get it. I do. I have been in your position. But imagine for a moment that it works. It brings in the perfect people and your business grows and it ends up being fun and easy and you are not burnt out. So I can't take the fear away, but what I can promise you that if you work with me one-on-one, you will have all the tools and the exact plan you need to build your business confidently with success. So I whipped up something together to ease your wallet and still get you what you need. I am introducing a brand new 90-minute business intensive. It's me, it's you, it's 90 minutes. It's digging into strategy, systems, social media, and schedules that are all customized to you with built-in accountability. Plus, you get access to 2 of my mini courses. It could be just what you need to get started. Spots are very limited, and this offer is not going to be available forever. Let's dig in and let's get you some wins this month. So one of the things that we wanted to cover was things not to do. And I think you've covered a couple. Are there any other sort of maybe sleazy traps that we might fall into because we've seen other people do them and think that they're like the way to do it, and it really is not the way to go?
You know, there's a whole lot of bait and switch. There's a whole lot of bait and switch. And a lot of it happens when you're looking at something low ticket. You're like, let's get the tripwire, let's get the foot in the door. Like all of my stuff, except for my super handheld services, are intentionally low ticket. I love low ticket. I'm not dogging low ticket. But what I see happening now, especially in digital, entrepreneurship specifically, people building courses or running masterminds, programs, memberships, stuff like that, is that they'll say, I'm going to throw out this low cost something just so I get this person on my list. Great. You could also put out something really valuable that's free and then sell something lower mid-ticket that's valuable and then have those people turn into evangelists and go tell everybody else about how amazing your low-ticket thing is, right? So one thing is make sure that if you're offering things on the lower end of the spectrum, that those things are actually valuable. Because a lot of the get-rich-quick scheme entrepreneurship stuff that you'll see there, especially if you're working a 9-to-5, is going to be like, you can make $25,000 in 1 second. All you have to do is send this form email out to 20,000 people.
Right.
No form emails ever. Don't freaking do it.
And
right?
by form emails, you just mean like cut and paste from like a template.
Like cut and paste from a template. And I'm all for structural templates. But what a lot of people will sell you is like, dear blank, thank you so much for your time. Here's every single thing you say. You fill in 3 details and you send the same exact email to those 20,000 people. No personalization, no detail, no nothing. Again, that's treating your list like a series of transactional things. Person that came onto your list becomes number 557 instead of saying, hey, I'm emailing Holly today. I just happen to be emailing 500 Hollies today. I still have to treat it like I'm emailing you because at the end of the day, I, Annie P. Ruggles, am emailing you, Holly Marie Haynes, person to person, right? Yeah. And so that's one of it. The other one is urgency and scarcity and other gimmicks. They work really well when they're based in either true urgency or scarcity or gamification. I see a whole lot of like, ooh, hurry up. You got to get in here. And then you find out that like the webinar has been running and saying it's starting right now, but really the webinar starts whenever you're there. It just tells it starts in 20 seconds. Ew. Yeah. That is fake urgency. Don't be fake. Don't fake it. If you're running a live webinar, say it's a live webinar. If you're running a pre-recorded webinar, say it's a pre-recorded webinar. Don't freaking fake that you're responding to comments because you're actually there. Ew! And I understand that it's really hard when you have super limited time to have quality FaceTime. So remove yourself from it entirely if you need to, but don't try to tell me it's live. It's abso-freaking-lutely not.
Yeah, that's a really good tip because I think we see that a lot. So you mentioned that you have some homework for our listeners. What can they do to get a better understanding of their future client needs and to help with sales?
I love that idea of future client needs in that a lot of us are looking at Avatar, right? Like a lot, not the show, although I love the show.
Yeah.
But a lot of us are looking at, the demographics, the psychographics of our people, but we're not looking at the metrics of how they'll know that you were worth purchasing. And so I would really look at what's the promise of the purchase and what's the problem that you're solving, right? I said those backwards, but you get the gist, right?
Yeah.
If you really key into the emotional world of the problem that you're solving, you will be able to speak to that with empathy. And then if you look at the metrics, you will be able to speak to that with clarity and detail that they understand to fit both of those needs. So really that homework is check on that dial. Look at that emotion, look at that metric, and make sure that depending on your buyer, you have a pretty broad spread of stuff you can bring to the table that will really help navigate conversations one way or another. But the other homework that I have is those forms of sales baggage that I looked at the beginning. If you are currently in a corporate environment, your homework is write down everything you hate about selling in a corporate environment. And
it's so good.
And strategically come up with an action item to do the exact opposite. And that also can be in delivery. If you hate that you sell a client in and then the delivery team blows the timeline you gave them, then guess what? Your action item is I will never blow a deadline. Ever. Right? If you are basing how you've been sold to, or if you're basing your view of sales on how you've been sold to badly, then I want you to pay very close attention for the next week on times that you're sold to beautifully. Whether it is the cupcake in the lobby or whether it's your kid's teacher that you overhear on digital learning, getting them to do the math that they don't want to do. Because that's sales too.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's a great point. That is such a great point.
And then lastly, if it's, stuff that you've learned that just no longer resonates or stuff that you know that you don't know, your homework is to go out and find better options. I am the loudest in this space. I am not the only. There are people out here who want you to be able to have a complete funnel, a complete marketing system, a complete selling system, a complete delivery system, customer retention system, whatever it may be, that is designed for bleeding hearts, empaths, lovers, givers like you. It exists. The idea that other sales training out there is some magical unicorn, it's not. It's actually all around you. So same homework as the previous group. Go out and find examples of people selling beautifully and treating their clients with love and respect. And you will have an infinitely better foundation than, hey, kid, you have to go sell all of these cookies by next Tuesday. Plus, it's a competition. Beat your friends.
Right.
Not the same.
I love that so much. That is some amazing, amazing homework. So I would love for us to sort of wrap up. I always end with 3 questions, and then you can tell everyone a little bit about what you're up to. So my first question is, what is your morning routine, current morning routine?
My morning routine is I wake up before my husband because he's taken to sleeping in the COVID world, and I'm loving that. I wake up before my husband and I brush my hair. The first thing I do, I don't know why, I'm not used to having long hair. I'm used to having pixie hair, and now I have like armpit length hair. I go in and I brush my luxurious long locks and do my little like morning brush, wash my face, whatever. At that point, though, all semblance of calm has been destroyed because my cats and my dog have awoken. So then the next thing I do is I sing them their good morning feeding song of the day, whatever that happens to be, very goofy because I'm also half asleep. And I feed the babies. And then I come up, I sit in my beautiful closet office, covered in fake green plants, and I outline what I'm going to do that day. And recently, I have been using your cake method every day to make sure that I do not overcommit in my days, because the nature of my day, like some days I have calls. Some days I'm writing a sales page for a client and I'm doing nothing else, right?
Yeah.
So, but the cake has really been helping me round out how I can find some normalcy and consistency in a career that is anything but.
I love that so much. Okay. What is one resource that has helped you the most in your journey so far?
One resource that has helped me the most in my journey so far, it's a weird one. It's a really weird one, but Blinkist. And I know that they're not the only audio summary thing out there, but when I first went on a mission to see how far the rabbit hole goes of selling, I knew I wanted to read a lot of books, but there are a lot of books out there. And Blinkist has these like 15-minute audio or summaries, audio or written, that you can read, and all about all of these different books. And for me, it was amazing because I would go in my morning routine. I'd listen to a 15-minute Blink while I fed the babies and did all of my stuff. And then based on that, I would know, A, do I want to reach out to this author? Do I want to try to connect with them? B, is there something in my curriculum that could be gleaned from this? Or C, should I read this book in full? Because a whole lot of the time I was like, oh my God, I took 900 pages of notes on a 15-minute summary. I got to get book and I got to get this book right now. So for me, it was like a tuning fork pointing out places I could go for free or cheap education that would really move the needle for me.
I love that. I have not heard of that. I am going to look at that.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. You hit all the marks, like learning and quick and efficient.
But it's like $100 a year.
Yeah, I love that. Last question. What is the last thing you purchased on Amazon?
Oh boy, what is the last thing that I purchased on Amazon?
We're on an Amazon break here.
Bubble wrap, right? I'm on an Amazon break. But the last thing I bought, every now and then you have to buy something from Amazon.
Yeah.
Like every now and then there's something that you're like, I have scoured the internet. So the last thing I purchased on Amazon are green bubble wrap mailers, because when people sign up for my program, I send them a sales bell. And a little green bubble wrap mailer for my cowbells, so that they not only don't get damaged in transit, but also so they don't drive our lovely friends in USPS and UPS insane with all the clanging.
I love that so much. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Annie. I have like literally 2 pages of notes here. So tell us where everyone can find you and sort of what you're up to. And I know we're going to put a link to the course you were mentioning in the show notes.
Yes. So my masterclass link will be in the show notes. It's called Make Selling Easy Without Getting Sleazy. If you are in active sales avoidance, meaning you feel gross, pukey, farty, nauseous, anything less than your magnificent, shiny self, when you go into a selling situation, you probably still have sales avoidance. Go check out that masterclass. And that is a really, really great place to get you ready to reframe, ready to work. But also, I know sometimes we just need an answer as soon as we can on one particular pain point of selling. And that is why I encourage everybody to reach out to me on a platform where I can get back to you directly. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm under Annie Passanisi Ruggles. Search for Annie Ruggles. You'll find me. Find me on Instagram. I'm at Anniepreneur. Come into a Clubhouse room where I am. I'm at APR on Clubhouse. But I know so much how sometimes we don't want to watch another mastermind. We just want to ask a question. And if that's you, I am here, me, directly, not my assistant, not my creative director, me. Operators are standing by.
I love that. Thank you so much, Annie. We'll make sure to get all this in the show notes so you guys can connect. Thank you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the Crush the Rush podcast. If this was helpful to you, I'd love it if you would please leave a review. It is truly what makes this show keep going and keeps the amazing guests possible. Even better, tag me on Instagram stories and let me know what you think. I cannot wait to hear from you.